I want to know who's here.
All right, welcome everybody to Workforce Wednesday. My name is Michelle Harris, training assistant here at the Center for Community Health Alignment. On today's broadcast, we will be discussing community health workers and their role as it comes to health equity. Our guest today is Mrs. Lisa Renee Holderby-Fox, CHW and Envision Program Manager. How are you doing, Miss Lisa Renee?
I am doing wonderful today, Michelle, and thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much for being here today. I'm very excited to get into this interview. So if you don't know who Lisa Renee is, I'm sure you've at least heard her name before or seen it on a conference somewhere. She's a well-known CHW leader, honored with the Massachusetts DPH Commissioner's Leadership Award, provided for leadership and promotion of community health workers and the community health worker movement in Massachusetts, as well as the Helen Rodriguez Trias Social Justice Award, awarded by APHA. Specific areas to be considered for this award are those that work in cross-cultural communication, reproductive rights, women's health issues, and providing access to healthcare. And we're just so lucky enough to have her on our team here at CHW with the Envision program. Hey, Lisa Renee, could you tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, and then how you ended up finding your niche in community health worker leadership development?
Sure, and thank you. I got my start as a community health worker about 30 years ago, a little over 30 years ago, as a community health advocate for the WIN program. What's really interesting, it's called CHWs then. So we continued to go by many different names as we do today. But I lived in the highest, in the area of Massachusetts that had the highest rate of infant mortality amongst African-American women and Latinas. And a organization there got a federal demonstration project grant to see if they could really make an impact and reduce the infant mortality rate. And they had the insight to say, what if we brought in women from the community who were part of the community, mirrored the target population we were trying to reach, which in this case was African-American women and Latinas. I was selected as one of the community health advocates / CHWs for this role, in part because I was a teen parent myself. Not only am I African-American, I speak Spanish and was a teen parent. So I was able to really connect with my fellow community members on many different levels. The other thing that I thought was really interesting was that I found how much I loved working in maternal and child health. It's an amazing feeling to be able to work with women and their families around one of the most important events of a family's life. And I just loved working maternal and child health and stayed there for a long time. And then many years later, a colleague of mine, who shall remain nameless, kept inviting me to a meeting. And I kept telling her I had no time to go to a meeting. And she'd say to me again, it's a community health worker meeting, you've got to come. And she'd give me a flyer. And I'd take that flyer and throw it away. And we did this for months until finally I gave in, figured I'd go to a meeting. She'd stop asking me. I walked into a room. I was in a room full of community health workers. And I felt like I was at home. And that was really the early days of the Massachusetts Association of Community Health Workers. As a member of that association, one of the founding members, I became very passionate about what can we do to improve the conditions for our workforce. And many years later, I was fortunate enough to become the executive director of the Mass Association of Community Health Workers. And at that time, and I'm dating myself a little bit now, but at that time, I was one of very few community health workers who were paid full-time to head up statewide associations at the time.
That's amazing. Wow. I love to hear about stuff like that. So just curious, were you more so in the perinatal part of maternal and child health or more so in the adolescent phase? Just
No, perinatal. I was fortunate enough to have the opportunity to become also a childbirth educator at that time, and was in the delivery room when a number of the parents I was working with gave birth, which is, again, an amazing opportunity. That's how trusted I was as a member of the community and a member of the CHW workforce.
Like similar to doulas, doulas, go by, everybody goes by different names, just like community health workers. A very close friend of mine is actually a doula as well. And just the relationships and the stories that they tell about their families that they worked with and the impact that they have also. And then a very close, close to my heart is how I got into community health work is I was working with children in a school. So that I started seeing the health disparities there. And I was like, wow, I really got to do something about this, because I was already working my public health degree. And I was like, I feel like this might be somewhere I'm kind of interested in. But
and it's a wonderful opportunity to assist families at the very, very beginning stages of a child's life. You can't get any sooner than being in that delivery room.
That's awesome. Making a difference at the very beginning, kind of setting them up to be successful at the beginning stages of life.
Exactly.
I like how we all catch the CHW bug and then we go out and we spread it to other people and we're like, here, have you heard about this? You kind of do this already. You should start going by this name.
Well, I can tell you, when I realized I was a member of the CHW workforce, I became on fire, and I wanted everybody to know that I was a CHW, and wanted others who went by different job titles at that time to realize that they were CHWs as well.
When you get into a room full of CHWs, like the energy and the passion that everybody comes into the room with is like crazy. It's like insatiable. Like it spreads like wildfire to everybody. It's so awesome. I love it. It's such a rewarding field to be in.
It is, and it's amazing to have some of the colleagues that we have across the country, because everybody is just as committed and just as passionate, regardless of which stages of life we're working with people in. That passion, that desire, and that commitment is there.
Regardless of state, organization, specialty, everybody's like, can I help you here? Can I help you here? Everybody's lending out the extra hands they have.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so moving on a little bit. So health equity seems like it's becoming a buzzword, definitely in the public health and community health worker fields. Why do you think it's important to include community health workers in addressing health disparities and ensuring health equity for communities?
Sure. So, CHWs have such a large impact on and with the communities that we serve, in part because we are who we serve. We're from those communities. We're very often facing the same health inequities as the individuals and families that we're working with in those communities. And the other thing is that we're very often the bridge. We're the bridge for organizations to reach communities. We're also the bridge, though, for communities to let those organizations know how they can best be served. And then that bridge extends, right, into policymakers and legislators. And the key here is to remember that a bridge goes both ways, right? So we're not just a bridge for the organizations that we work for, but we're also a bridge for those community members to reach organizations, legislatures, other policymakers. And so without having us as a workforce being engaged in eliminating health disparities and promoting health equity, we'd be missing the boat. We're one of the most diverse workforces because, again, we come from the communities that we serve. And again, we're also impacted by many of the same inequities people that we work with are.
That's very true. Like, we're advocating not only for ourselves, but also for the community, the communities that we're already a part of. And then as going with that is, advocating for them, but only not just that, but also helping them find the power to advocate for themselves as well.
That's right, Michelle. A piece of our role and one of our core competencies is really to build capacity of individuals and communities to really take control of their health, but also to make change. And it's really important to know that we've got to be sitting at the table with the people that are making these decisions, because, again, if we're not at the table, we're going to be on the menu. And that's not where we want to be. That's not where we want community members to be. We want us all to be equal have equal say in what happens in our communities and how we promote that equity.
All right, so I mentioned a little bit earlier how you are the Envision Program Manager here. So for those who don't know, what is the Envision Equity Program? And then could you tell us a little bit about what your role looks like as the Program Manager?
Sure, absolutely. So Envision is providing technical assistance and training to all of the recipients of the CDC's CHWs for COVID Response and Resilient Communities Grant Program. There were almost 70 recipients across the country and the US territories and freely associated states. So these grants went out far and wide to many different communities, and CHWs are engaged in the process. And the Envision team here at the Center for Community Health Alignment is providing programmatic technical assistance. And one of the really exciting things about our team here is that we're a team of CHWs. So CHWs providing technical assistance to CHW programs. And that's very, very exciting. And the other thing that's really exciting about our team is that we are a fully distributed team. I sit physically in Georgia. We have a coach who sits physically in Delaware. We also have a coach coming on board who sits in Wisconsin. And my role is really to oversee the program to make sure that the recipients are getting the technical assistance they need. But also, one of my unofficial roles, I'll say, is to really assist the community health worker coaches to increase their leadership capacity and skills as well.
I love that you're like advocating for your own people as well. And you're kind of practicing what you're preaching here as far as like having CHWs have a seat at the table. You're continuing that capacity building by having CHWs doing this work. It's kind of, it comes all the way around full circle and kind of it serves everyone and continues the growth. It's really awesome. Speaking of growth, actually, isn't your team growing? Isn't that true?
Yes. You know, as I just shared, we are bringing on a wonderfully talented coach who's physically in Wisconsin, but we do still have one more opening. And I would love to round out our team in the very near future. So yes, we are accepting applications if people would like to apply for one of the final, actually, coach position.
I love that too. Also, everyone being around nationally, since you are serving programs and organizations that are national, because you said there were 70 recipients all across the place, having someone seated in each region really like speaks to the, we are from the community that we're serving. Like we at least, you know, we have that background experience of knowing where you come from and where we come from to know kind of where you're coming from with what you need and how we can best support it.
Absolutely. You know, because there are almost 70 recipients, not quite 70, Michelle, but almost 70 recipients, that's okay, of the funding, it's really important that we are a diverse team, just as diverse as the grant recipients are. And in fact, not only are there states that were funded in the US territories and freely associated states, but there's also several tribal nations that have been funded as well. So we really want to make sure that our team reflects the communities that we're serving through these grants.
That's awesome. So what do you believe the impact, both present and future, is going to be of the Envision program?
Sure. This really excites me to talk about for lots of reasons. You know, I think our immediate impact is really to assist the recipients of the funding to have strong and successful and sustainable CHW programs. You know, that's one of the things that always CHW programs are concerned about is, you know, how can we make sure that we've got a strong program, and then what do we do to sustain these programs? And Envision is helping on both fronts. The other area that we're having impact on is professional development for CHWs. All of the recipients understand the importance of professional development education and training for CHWs, and we're offering some of those opportunities, including making sure that people have access and can be connected to CHW core competency training. Across the country, CHWs and our allies have really understood and recognized the importance of core competency training, as well as specialty training for CHWs. Another impact that we're having immediately right now is not only for the folks that we're working with, the recipients of the funding, but also internally, our internal team. Envision is committed to supporting and enhancing CHW leadership development. Again, one of the things that I'm most passionate about. And so we are committed to not only offering opportunities for other CHWs across the country and other recipients to have opportunities for leadership development, but to make sure that we're doing that internally. Most of the Envision team is made up of CHWs. And those CHWs are being given opportunities to expand their wings and be part of leadership teams and groups. For me personally, there were folks who saw something in me that I didn't see in myself, and nurtured leadership skills to get me where I am today. And I make it my business to be able to give back in that same way. And so to be part of a team like Envision that really believes in that, that's exciting to me. The future, wow. I hope that at the end of this initial funding that we're receiving, that the question of do CHWs make an impact is no longer asked, right? But then we can say, yes, CHWs have made an impact, and this is where, this is how. One of the areas that that the grantee recipients were all working in is COVID, right? COVID-19, and making sure the communities have access to resources, information, etc. I would like to say this will be the last pandemic. We will see. I don't know that I can say that, right? But as we look to the future, we will have communities and CHWs who have the skills, the knowledge, and the desire to be there if, in fact, we find ourselves in a similar situation, and or quite honestly, natural disasters, any of those things, but we will have the skills as a workforce to move forward. And again, I'm hoping no one will be asking the question, what's the value of CHWs? What's the impact? But that we can point to the work that Envision has done and say, here's the impact. This is where CHWs can really shine. So that's my hope for the future. And the other, I'll just add this, the other thing that I really hope is that we're in the position where our teams and our work can continue to grow. This is a fairly short funding period, but not only are we thinking about sustainability for the recipients, but also sustainability for the work that we're doing now.
When you said sustainability, I was like, that's a huge one. I feel like that's something that, the whole workforce, everybody's talking about, is because we are such a particularly grant funded field. That's where a lot of us get our funding from. So trying to have things to point to, like you're saying with Envision, having the facts to be like, here is what we do. This is the impact that we have. Now that you can see this, keep us around. We're still going to be here regardless of whether you keep us around. But
it's nice to have the funding.
Yeah,
right, to support our work, and this, we are just very fortunate. I just want to say this because this is one of the largest, if not the largest, investment in the CHW workforce in our communities, at least in the time that I've been a CHW. And so we need to really take advantage of this and make sure that that the legacy continues.
I mean, who better to be doing it? Number one, first of all, you who has, all this background and all this rich experience to be doing this, and then also the passion that you bring to be developing the workforce as you're doing it, and, really lifting people up and seeing those leadership opportunities. Because that's how I kind of feel like we all get started, as somebody sees us doing the work that we're already doing, and they're like, hey, I have a resource that I could connect you with, or I have an organization I could connect you with. Like,
Yes,
let
yes.
me help you, because we are helpers. So we love to see the people that we're around continue to grow and flourish. So it's really great to be able to see that happen.
And Michelle, I have to say, I have the honor and pleasure of sitting with you today and talking about this work. But there's a team of folks that are committed and have the same commitment to the workforce and to the communities that we serve that I do. So I just kind of want to put that out there. And as we look to the future, and I talk about the impact of CHWs, and hopefully we won't be in the position of saying, yes, we can do this, but we can say we have done it and we will continue to do it. But this whole effort has been done with CHWs in leadership positions within the Envision program. And so I just want to elevate that one more time.
Of course, putting the CHWs in the position to advocate for the community, but also to advocate for other CHWs as well, kind of saving them the seat at the table, like you said earlier.
Yes, yes. And we have some amazing allies that have really walked alongside of us in this work. Not only the Envision team, but also allies far and beyond the Envision team as well. The work that's happening now would not really be able to happen without folks who came before us, kind of paving the way.
Kind of cutting down some of the high grass so that you could have a path to walk on, so to say.
I like that. Yes.
I do keep going back to this analogy of we elevate each other out, but that's kind of just how I see it all, is like we are those helping hands, and we kind of just provide each other those extra steps to be able to reach the heights that we want to reach. And
That's
kind of
right.
speaking of reaching new heights and engaging in more than just communities, going past the relationship level, hitting all these different levels. Why is it important to engage CHWs in policy development for the CHW workforce?
Sure. Who better to engage when you're talking about policy development for the CHW workforce, right? We understand what the needs of our workforce are. We also have some innovative and creative ideas to move our workforce forward. And I'd be remiss if I didn't also make the analogy that, there are many other workforces across the country, and they all, or should all, be taking control of their own future. What does their workforce look like in the future? And so CHWs are no different. And many times in doing that, it's important to develop policies, not only, legislation, but also administrative policies in our organization. There's all levels of policies and policy development that would assist our workforce to maximize our potential today, tomorrow.
It kind of reminds me of kind of us all coming together as far as recognizing the competencies as well, kind of on a national level, as all of us are coming together as to sort of say, like, this is the baseline. This is what we all agree on, and this is what we all want to focus on. We all think that's important, and the things, the roles that we play.
Absolutely, absolutely. And that's been happening for a long time. And most recently, the CHW Core Consensus Project, or C3, as it's affectionately called, has really elevated that and engaged CHWs across the country in recognizing these are our skills, competencies, and roles. And so, again, not done without CHW leadership and some wonderful allies.
Of course, of course. And also, I think it's important to mention as well, you're saying that you're putting CHWs in leadership positions. Who better to be in the leadership of CHWs than CHWs? Like, who better understands the work that they do, that, the outreach that they're conducting, the struggles that they face every single day, And who better to understand them and to be supporting them than people who are doing the work, have done the work, and have the advice and have the experience to be able to, you know, number one, advocate for them, but also guide them as far as lifting them up and being like, this is what I've experienced in my years. Take this with you, and, you know, take that and share it with other people as well. Share it with your participants, share it with other CHWs.
Absolutely, Michelle. And that's part of the reason that I advocate whenever possible that CHWs are elevated as supervisors for other CHWs, right? And I'm not saying that other people don't make fantastic supervisors for CHWs, but again, who better to really understand the trials, tribulations, and quite honestly, elevate the successes of CHWs than someone who's also walked that walk.
They can walk the walk and now they can talk the talk.
That's right. That's right.
All right.
You don't want people just doing the talk. You want people who walk the walk.
Exactly. Exactly. All right. Well, those are all of the questions that I have for you today. You are out of the hot seat, sort of, kind of, almost officially. Before we go, though, how can people get into contact you? Where can we find you? Where can we find Envision?
Sure. So I can be reached at the Center for Community Health Alignment. Folks would like to reach me there. My phone number is also 803-917-4519. My email, lrholderby-fox@sc.edu. And of course, the Envision webpage, www.envisionequity.org. And I just want to give a plug, not only for the visiting the Envision webpage, but we have 1 million resources, maybe not quite 1 million, but a lot of resources there that people may find helpful. All kinds of topics, engaging CHWs, onboarding CHWs, COVID-19. We just had a long COVID webinar. All of those resources are there. And you can find information about the job posting that I mentioned earlier, the CHW coach that will be based at the Center for Community Health Alignment.
All right, everybody. Well, now you have Lisa Renee's digits, and then you also know where to go to apply and to find resources as well. And thank you so much again, Lisa Renee, for being here. This was truly a great interview and a great experience.
Thank you so much, Michelle, for inviting me. And I had a ball. I didn't mind being in the hot seat for a little while.
It's kind of nice. It feels like a sauna.
It does.
All right. Bye, everybody.
Bye. Thank you.